In this quick tutorial, I'm going to show you how to animate your lights in the Godot engine to make the same electrical bulb flicker animation that you see here. Animated lights can give a lot of character to your levels and make things a lot more interesting. So let's jump into it. Let's first add a light in here. I'm going to add an Omni light and let's place that into the room. We've already added a little bit of character. I'm going to add some columns in here just to give us some shadows. If you're not familiar with what I'm using here, this is Trench Broom. I've got a couple of tutorials on using this with the Godot engine. Just a really great way to add and create levels. Copy that over and let's make this one a little bit smaller. Go. So I've got my columns in here. We're going to put our light right in the middle and turn on our shadows. There we go. Increase the range a little bit. We've got some shadows. Perfect. Now we have three different lights within the Godot engine. We have an Omni light, a spotlight, and a directional light. We can do this script for all three different lights if we extend the right class. So we're going to start by creating a new script. We're going to call this animated light. So directional, omni, spot, they all inherit from light 3D. And the only thing that we really need to affect right now is our light energy. So we're going to inherit from light 3D. We can't physically do this within our selection here, but we can do it. We just have to type it in ourselves. We're going to create that and let's delete all that. The first thing we want to do is let's make this a tool script. We want to see this in the editor. It's going to be a lot more fun to work with. I'm going to paste what I have in here first. We're going to extend our light 3D class and we're going to create an enumeration. We're going to create the bulb type in this video. And if you wanted to create different types and just switch between them, this is how you can do it. So you create an enumeration and then your different type of lights. We get an export variable for our flicker type. And that's going to use the flicker type enumeration. We're going to set that to bulb. And then we need to set our base energy. So instead of setting that within the Omni light, like you normally would right here in our energy, we're going to set it in our script. And because it's a tool script, it's going to allow us to adjust that light. So we have our base energy and then a flicker speed. And one thing I want to add to this just as a small feature. So if you notice over here in our size for our light, we have our meters. You can actually customize your own export variables with your own string. So we have export range, and within that, we have a extra hint. We'll paste that in there. Export range from 0.1 to 5 will move in a step of 0.1, and it had a suffix of X. And if you notice now in our inspector, we now have an X, which is pretty nice. Just a nice little trick there. Then we're going to create some export variables for our bulb settings. We're going to create a group for that so it's nice and orderly. And we have four different variables. First being the intensity range. That is the range of change that the bulb can flicker. Then we have a flicker chance, which is going to make more sense in a little bit. Basically, this is like a percentage. This is saying a 15% chance every time we check whether or not we should flicker. And then we have how often we're going to check for that flicker chance. Right now it's set to every 0.1 seconds. And then we're also going to have the option to either snap these changes and make them immediate, or if we're going to lerp between them. And this is our speed for that lerp if we're lerping, which actually I forgot that. So there's our bulb snap. So set to true. We're just going to change the light immediately. Then we need a couple of private variables here. One's going to be the time accumulator. This is going to be a built-in timer for our flickering system. And then the target energy of where we want to go, and then the current energy of where we are. The first thing we want to do is as soon as we're ready, we want to set our current energy, our target energy, and our light energy to the base energy that we set in the animated light. That just makes sure that we're starting at the right range. Then within our process function, we're going to do a match just in case you have some other flicker types like we have up here. In fact, this would look like this if you had those. Now we don't have any of these, so we'll pass out of that. It'll check what our flicker type variable is set to, and if it's set to bulb, we run this and fire and pulse and so on. We don't have this yet. That'll be the next thing we add. So we check if we're in the bulb. We do this every frame. And if we are, we're going to run our process bulb flicker function. So let's walk through this real quick. First, we're going to run this every frame. We're going to make sure we pass along delta. Our time accumulator, which is set to 0, is going to add whatever our time in that frame is. And you get that by doing our delta. Just as a reminder, the delta is the amount of time that has passed since the last frame. We're going to multiply that by our flicker speed so we can increase the time accumulator or decrease it so we can make things go faster, make things go slower. And as we increase that time accumulator, which I'm realizing is actually an overly complicated name for this, it could just be called timer. But if our time accumulator is greater or equal to our interval check, and remember our interval check is 0.1. So after 0.1 seconds pass, this will end up being true. And so we're going to reset that accumulator, and then we're going to run our flicker logic. And this is how this works. If a random float, and this random float is going to give us something between 0 and 1, is less than the bulb flicker chance. This is what I was talking about with that percentage. We have a 0.15 chance. That's basically saying we have a 15% chance of having this be true. Now, if we set this to 1, then it's going to be true every single time. We set it to 0, it'll never be true. This is just a percentage. So there's a 15% chance this will be true, and then we trigger our flicker. If you want it to trigger more, obviously you have that be higher. We're going to create something called the flicker amount. And this is going to equal a float between 0 and the intensity range that we set. This is what gives us our variation in our base energy. And we do that by setting the target energy to equal the base energy, whatever our main setting is, minus the base energy multiplied by the flicker amount. So if this flicker amount is, let's see, 0.3, then we're going to multiply our base energy by 0.3 and then subtract that from the base energy. And that's going to give us, I believe, 70% base energy. Now, if we don't pass the flicker chance, then we're going to go back to our base energy. Finally, we're going to apply that energy, and we can do that either through snapping it or through lerping it. So if we have the snap on, we're just going to immediately set the current energy to the target energy. And if we don't have the snap on, then we're going to lerp it. And we lerp the current energy to the target energy by an alpha of delta times the smooth speed. Finally, we set the light energy, which is the one thing we're affecting within our light, to the current energy. Now, sometimes the tool scripts are a little weird, so I had to just duplicate this so it reloads it. Reloading the project usually takes care of it too. So now this is running, and it's running within the editor. We have a base energy of 5. We can set that to 3. We can increase the intensity range. We can increase the chance that it flickers. We can change how often we check for that interval change. I feel like 0.1 is a pretty good amount. And then if we want to lerp it, we turn that off. And now we are smoothly changing between our energies, and we can change the speed of that as well. Everything about the light still works the same. We can change the colors, so we can turn off our shadow. The only thing that we're adjusting right now is the light energy. Now, if you wanted to do a more advanced version of this, you could also adjust the range of the light or maybe the attenuation, depending on what effect you're going for. But this can definitely give more life to your level, just a little character. As always, if you want to get these source files for this, you can get them on my Patreon. In addition to the flicker effect we just created, the Patreon source files also have a fire effect and a pulsing effect that you can easily change just using the dropdown. And this script does work with other light types like the spotlight and directional lights. This is a spotlight with that same script, and we can turn it into a flickering bulb as well. It's just something that I've been working on for my game, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to share. So thanks for watching. Again, you can grab those source files on Patreon, and as always, keep creating.